All right, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of A Sip of Knowledge with Marty Duffy, Liz Rhodes, and Lou Bryson, plus two special guests this week. We have Charlie MacLean and Ross Morrison, who I will let your host give a more formal introduction to in just a moment. Before we get going, I'm Will Hookinga from Zavga.co, and as always, just want to point out a couple of ways that you can interact with your hosts and their guests throughout the show today. So to your right, you'll see a chat box. Feel free to say hello. Let us know where you're joining us from in the world today. If you have a question at any point during the presentation, there's a little button at the bottom that says Ask a Question. So just click that, type your question in there. I'll be keeping an eye out on those throughout the show. And last but not least, feel free to invite your friends to join us. There's a share button at the top that makes that really easy to do. But with all that said, Marty, Liz, Lou, I'll turn things over to you now.
Thanks there, Will. By the way, I'm giving you a new street name. It's Will I or Won't I? Boom. Keep people guessing. Not a boy. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Martin Duffy, Esquire, also a honorary, Charlie, just so you know, honorary member of the Audubon Society and a runner-up in the Publisher Clearinghouse. So, hello, nice. Mr. MBE. I'm a former senior master of whiskey for Diageo, 14 glorious years, 18 inglorious months, as the sole brand representative for Benedictine in all of North America. And then 8 glorious years, everything's glorious. The co-producer of the Chicago Independent Spirit Expo. And for the last nearly 7 years, I have been the sole brand representative for Glencairn Crystal. Hey, all the way from Scotland, Ross.
That's a terrible accent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Most Americans buy it. So, all right, Lizard.
On the show, just for that comment. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. I'm Liz Rhodes, technical distiller and spirit consultant. I have just over a decade of experience in the alcoholic beverage sector, spanning across several different substrates and products, including beer, rum, vodka. But my particular favorite and expertise, of course, whiskey. I spent most of my career at a tiny company known as Diageo, but I'm now currently founding principal at Spirit Safe Consulting. And hey, want to know a little bit more about Spirit Safe Consulting? If you scroll down to the About the Host section, there's actually a link to my website. So click it, check it out.
Thank you, Liz. I am Lou Bryson, a whiskey writer. I am plugging my book, Whiskey Masterclass.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Marty. There he is. The other one. Yes, the old favorite. Formerly, for 20 years, managing editor at Whiskey Advocate and currently a senior drinks writer for the Daily Beast, half full drink section. And today I am sampling Bowmore 15, which they were nice enough to send me some, so I thought I'd have some. Cheers. Back to you, Marty.
Cheers. Thanks, Lewis. I'm polishing off the last of my Johnny Walker Black, which is, basically liquid cereal. So, hi. So big time today. 2 guests and maybe a little break in our usual routine, and that we're talking about a subject. One
very specific
subject, and that is angel share. So we have 2 guests, one who knows the history of it, the other who may have an answer to it. Hello, shooting the angels off of Scotland. So our first guest is Charlie MacLean, famed whiskey author. I have all his books, and I basically made a third wall. Or a 5th wall in my apartment, just out of your books. They're all over the place. And our other guest is Ross Morrison. Ross is an entrepreneur. You see that jersey behind him? I think he owns that team. Is that right, Ross?
I'm the chairman. I can't say I own it. I am the chairman.
Yeah, you
of
own
Inverness
it. That's a
Caledonian.
fancy way of saying you own it. Don't can't get done by me. All right. First off, and also too, before we start, congratulations to Charlie. He was voted bestowed.
Oh no,
It's
no
bestowed upon you. An MBE, which is Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, which I think was given to you by Bill and Ted after one of their excellent adventures. The most excellent.
You've all got a courtesy now. You've all got a courtesy to Charlie.
Oh, really? Are you a sir?
I did a little like golf clap. Does that count?
You must avert your eyes before you speak to him. You can't even look at him in the face now.
Can we not turn our backs on him as we leave a room?
Oh no, God no. No.
Are you Sir Charles now?
You're very kind. I'm sorry?
Are you Sir Charles?
No.
No, it doesn't give you a sir.
The MBE is the lowest of the orders of the empire.
They don't know that.
So still room to expand then.
Yeah. You're time to work your way up.
Nevertheless, only 4 people currently working in the Scotch whisky industry have MBEs or OBEs. 3 of them are blenders. One of them is a very long-serving distillery manager. So I'm the first that's ever been.
It's a fabulous honour. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Ross. Yeah, it is. I'm hugely flattered. I'm hugely flattered by it, I must say. But it's so you don't have to bow and curtsy. But anyway, it's very.
Does
nice.
the Queen herself give it to you?
Yeah, well, she hasn't yet, but I've had the notification, and the Queen. I will receive the honour at Hurun here in Edinburgh. But when, I don't know, because of all the COVID stuff, everything's delayed. And so, and a friend of mine was saying that maybe the Queen, because she's getting quite on, she's quite elderly now, and maybe the Queen won't be able to do this, and maybe they'll get Prince Andrew. Oh. And I said, no, Prince Andrew is used to take away honours, not to.
Let's not go there. Let us not go there.
Well, if you meet the Queen, tell her I saw her movie. I really liked it.
Oh, great. I loved it. I loved The Crown. It's a terrific movie. The Crown.
The one with Helen Mirren was fantastic. I really had a different appreciation for the woman.
Yeah. No.
So if you haven't seen it, Liz, it's really good. Yeah, she has.
Check it out. Yeah.
All right. Now,
okay.
Sir Charles, what I'd like to ask, so we're talking about Angel Share. First off, for those, and I'm sure there's nobody out there who doesn't know this, but just in case, why don't you explain Angel Share and how it happens? I mean, it's kind of simple, but still.
Right. So the Angel Share is that portion of liquid which is lost during maturation. Now, in Scotland, the tax people allow for 2% per annum. In places like Kentucky or Taiwan or India, you're up to about 12-15% loss per annum. So it's a very considerable, loss of liquid, and therefore of revenue. So that's the basis of the Angel Share. Is interesting enough. My friend Liz, you'll know Dr. Morgan, Nick Morgan. He's been doing some research into this. The term was originally used in cognac. And it's assumed that it was an ancient thing in Scotland and so on. Actually, it was only in the 1960s and 70s that it began to be used attached to Scotch whisky, or indeed any other whisky. Originally the term it was to do with the same sort of thing in cognac. So that's that's the background to the term, and Ross is going to speak about inhibiting this or reducing the loss, because obviously there's an awful lot of, I mean, well, you'll tell us, Ross, but the millions of gallons that are lost during maturation, very, very significant. And if you can inhibit it, and there's various attempts been made to reduce it, unsuccessfully, but I think Ross has got the solution. But let me first of all, if I could, maturation converts spirit, white spirit, into into whiskey. In America, you're allowed to sell it as whiskey, American whiskey, after 2 years. All over the world, you've got to mature it for 3 years before it can even be called whiskey. And indeed, in terms of straight bourbon, straight rye, it has to be. I think Lou, you correct me on this, but it has to be matured for at least 3 years. And my mentor, Dr. Jim Swan, great guru, he's dead now, but and he described beautifully the transformation between the white spirit and mature whiskey. And he said that if you think of the white spirit being like a caterpillar going into the cask, which was the chrysalis, and then emerging as a butterfly. And it's a lovely, lovely image. And it's a really lovely image, that, and it's a total transformation. It's a metamorphosis. It's a complete change in the style of the from spirit to whiskey. Now, what is happening? The actual chemistry of maturation is really only been understood in the last, say, 20, 30 years. But what is happening, the chemists now say there are 3 processes called additive, subtractive, and interactive. Now, the additive process is flavors coming from the cask itself. Okay, so chemicals are coming out of the walls of the cask, and they're beneficial flavor. In American oak, the ex-bourbon casks, forget the fact it's been matured in bourbon, but you're getting vanilla, and you're getting coconut, and you're getting certain desirable flavors coming into and color, of course. American oak gives this gorgeous sort of golden color. The other wood that's used it's got to be oak by law. But the other oak wood that's used is European oak, which is a looser grain, more tannic, and so you get a deeper color, and you get different flavors coming into the liquid, and they tend to be more spicy. They tend to be more tannic, drier, not as sweet as American oak. But they're different. And of course, the more times the cask is filled, the less active, the less impact the cask will have. And so for long maturation, you want a refill cask, which is not going to because otherwise, if you fill into a first fill cask, as we call them, then you're going to get a mature product in 5 years, 3 to 5 years, and depending on in America you get a mature product in 3 years. What was I going to say? But if you leave it in that very active cask for 20 years, it's going to be dominated by flavors coming from the wood, which is not 100% desirable, quite frankly. But the third is the most mysterious and least understood, the interactive. They call them, what do they call them? You've got additive, and they call them mechanisms, don't they, Liz? For some reason, I don't know why they're called mechanisms, but the interactive.
Yeah.
And that is where the liquid is maturing and interacting, because the great thing about oak wood is that it allows they call it that they allows the spirit to breathe, to interact with outside. So you get oxidation, you get all kinds of complicated chemical changes in the spirit, which is really where Scotch scores, because of our generally damp and cool climate. You can leave them for longer, and you get this sort of interaction in the right cask for a period of time. You get these miraculous changes, So that's the basis, that's the background. But of course, during the course of maturation, you're losing liquid all the time because it's breathing, because it's evaporating, And this is really where Ross's invention comes in.
Are you gonna hold it up? Is that what you grabbed?
Do you know what I did?
What do you say?
I grabbed because Ken being the master of cardboard, we went to a dinner, and I said, well, I can't take a bonnet with me because a bonnet is that size, because that's the one for American Standard. So he made, can you believe, an attache case from cardboard and a mini bonnet.
A mini one.
A mini bonnet.
What's
Or a wee bonnet, as we'd say.
volume
bonnet.
of that one?
Sorry, what's the? Well, this one.
Yeah, with a barrel.
Oh no, this is just for taking and annoying people at dinner to show them to get my message across, which was successfully done. I think we call this the Ian Chang one, because this is the one I nobbled him on. Eventually, I got him and I sat him down and actually listened. So that was that.
Okay.
Well, then, since we've shown this, why don't we get right into it? The Scotch Bonnet, as it's referred to. This is something that is new to the market. First, Ross, tell us a little bit, about yourself.
Okay.
How you got into this. And then once you got into this, your background isn't necessarily in whiskey, and yet here you came up with an item that could save whiskey kind.
Yeah, well, the background is in property, and we got into it by mistake, I've got to say, into building maturation bonds, because we had this great big building in just outside Edinburgh, and had nothing to do with it because just turned 2001, and our next door neighbours were Glenmorangie, and they said, look, could you build a maturation bond? I went, absolutely, not a problem. What the hell's a maturation bonds? Anyway, so we learned on building maturation bonds. We've so far built 5 or 6 of them. We're still in that industry, and because we were building these things, we spent quite a lot of time with distillers, maturation directors, etc., and they moaned continuously about the amount of angel share that they were losing. We then found out what the angel share was. I sat down with a chum of mine, Cardboard Ken, and we came up with a plan, on a simple plan that we honestly thought that somebody would have done before, in trying to curtail the amount of spirit that was coming out of the top of palletized barrels. It has to be palletized because we only did palletized maturation bonds, so that's all we knew. So we developed a hat basically for the top of a wooden barrel, which was made out of wood. It's made out of fiberboard, which is ostensibly it's wood. It's virgin pulp wood. There's a little bit of bits and pieces to go with it, and the way that we produced it, which I can get into later on if you wish. But basically, we took it to a distiller that we were dealing with, and we were building a new, and said, "Look, you've had 30 odd years in the industry. If we put an idea to you, could you have a look at it? Give us a critical acclaim. Let us know what you think. If you think it's rubbish, tell us." And we put it in front of them, and the chap went, "That's a brilliant idea. Why nobody's done it, I don't know, but it's a brilliant idea. If you could change this, that, come back to me with it." We did that, and they put it on test, and it's gone from there. It's gone slowly because it isn't my main business. It's quite a difficult thing to convince people of because it's so simple. But the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and it's worked, and it's not changed spirit structure, and it's not changed spirit taste. I'm not saying it won't, but I'm saying up to now, all the evidence that we've got states that it works. So ask a question if you wish, because I'm probably at the end now.
Sorry, how many years experience do we have? When did you first start?
We got in about 2015, 2016. So we got about 40 odd months of numbers. We got and they were basically done on weight. That's all it was done. It was done on weight, and it was done on taste, and that was it. So the longest scientific ones we have were not very scientific. But what it did prove is that the barrels that were put against control barrels were heavier than the barrels with our bonnets on than didn't have the bonnets on.
And
the other thing, sorry.
I'm just recalling the data sheet that I think was sent out. Can you go on record? What percentage are we talking about in terms of savings?
Well, one of the things that was that we had was that because it's their wood, there was every barrel that we had, every barrel against a control barrel, we bettered. So I just used a simple averages. And the average was about 50% we saved against the average of control barrels. Now, some of it was more, some of it was less, but I was reasonably good at arithmetic at school, and that's basically what we did. So we just averaged it out.
So Ross, why couldn't you take a barrel? I know. So these fit on the tops and bottoms of palletized casks and barrels. So why not create one, since I'm assuming in Scotland most casks are still being laid down, at least the older distilleries lay them down. Why not create one that is like can fit over the top of the side of a barrel? You know, go about halfway, little hole in the top for the bung.
I'm having enough bother getting these ones through, so I'm just going to go on the website at the moment.
Well, I was just thinking. I mean, that would be more customers. That's all I'm thinking.
Well, one of the things is that it's like having the lottery numbers. You've either got the lottery numbers or you've not. Now, this is working. So if it continues to work, every you would think that every palletized barrel, whether it be cognac, rum, whiskey, bourbon, etc., should have one on. So what we've got to keep doing is proving that it's working. And what we've done is that we've pushed over the last year using social media to get out there an awful lot more, which has proved very successful. So we're in the four corners of the earth at the present moment, and there's bonnets going out all over the place just now.
Ross, look, I do think you should explain how it works. How does creating that space between the crows of the top of the barrel and the lid.
That was my little demo.
Yeah.
So much clearer now.
I thought you were doing a Japanese ceremonial dance.
If you take the simplified,
Equilibrium.
this is the bonnet. So the bonnet has that inside it. So it goes on the top, slaps down on the top.
And
inside
what's that brass thing?
This is, now I'm just going to get it done right because I'm going to get this proper. This is, the disc is food line gold foil. So this is what they use in meat, they use in food. It's completely inert. But underneath it is a ring of corrugated cardboard in here. So there's this kind of labyrinth where the spirit can move. And this, so the bonnet doesn't stop maturation. It doesn't stop maturation. It doesn't stop it evaporating. It sort of settles it down. And it was proved when I went to collect when the first distillery were testing it, I went, rather than them destroying the bonnets, I went to collect them. First of all, to see how they'd managed, because they were looking at putting them on, these were on pallets which were serious. There was a serious weight pushing down on this. So I wanted to see how the fiberboard worked. But what happened, what we found out is that the bonnet was then, after it had been there for so long, it was saturated in spirit. So it provided not only the seal of the fiberboard, but provided it was wet fiberboard from spirit. And what we think is going to happen now is that once you've used it once, it'll be pre-charged with spirit. So then you take the bonnet and put it onto a new barrel, and it'll work quicker on the new barrel.
Oh, so it's actually the spirit.
Equilibrium will be there sooner.
If you have a wet piece of cardboard, say, it's going to be less permeable than a dry piece because it can get through. So it's a kind of suck it and see with these things. But it doesn't taste. It saves spirit, and I can tell you there not much more I've got to say at the present. Ask me questions.
So the technology, and I think you talked about cardboard can. So this was a known, packaging material with known moisture vapor transmission rates, and you just sort of applied that to a new.
Well, we needed something that was very strong, and there was something that would not react with the wood. So basically, we used wood because it wouldn't react with wood, and it was very, very because fiberboard is compressed already. So if you're looking at 6 high, 7 high palletized barrels, 6 barrels on a pallet, the weight of that is enormous, and it's going to be damp. So if you use cardboard would just rip, and it would just tear because it's going to be damp. It's going to be, but the fiberboard doesn't. So it's worked really, really well.
I think what you said ahead of the show, distilling it down, it's a wooden hat.
It's a wooden hat. Yeah. It's a wooden hat. Well, wooden hat with labyrinth, and it also needs that disc to sort of put the spirit and put it through the labyrinth again.
What is the disc doing? That's what I'm.
What is it doing? I don't know. It's working.
Charlie, when we were talking, Ross, to make it simple, the bonnet sits on top of the crows, the little rim at the top of the cask. That's right. It's got to be standing up, and it creates not a seal, but it creates a vacuum. But the how would you describe it? But the key thing is that the vapor comes up. You were saying, Marty, that why not do it on the side? You can't do it on the side. You can't do it because you've got to create this. Most of the loss comes through the head of the cask, and the even when the cask is lying on its side. But so if you create this little, how would you describe it, Ross? It's not this space between you inhibit the it's like you described it to me, Ross, as you can add sugar to water, and after so much it becomes saturated, and so you can't dissolve the sugar because it becomes that salt. The same thing.
If you look at it, one of the things that we looked at when we started off was that after the first year, it did absolutely nothing. There was no difference. And it didn't really start working until probably 18 months into it in Scotland. And I think the reason for that was that the control barrel and the bonneted barrel had liquid in them exactly the same. So therefore, it wasn't until the bonnet, the control barrel started losing, so the head would have dried out quicker. So the more the head dries out quicker on the control barrel, the more the bonnet saves, because its head is wetter than the control barrel, and that's really how it works. So it's taking spirit that's trying to go out, and it's putting it back, but it's not allowing it to go out. It's holding it in there and keeping it cozy, basically.
See, that's interesting. That was brought up by a writer down in Kentucky who's not in favor of palletized whiskey for that very reason, that the heads will dry, especially in very hot climate like Kentucky.
Yeah.
And then add a kind of an off flavor to a whiskey, with almost like a corking, except in a
Though people have talked about that, but I don't know that we've noticed any difference between palletized bourbon and raked bourbon.
I don't know. I've heard people say there is, but I've never done it.
I've heard people say a lot of shit.
Yeah.
So,
Almost every week for an hour.
yeah.
That's a bonnet that's been on for 30 odd months. So against the comparison with a bonnet that's brand new, that's a bonnet that's brand new, and that's a bonnet that's been on for 30 odd months, which are massive compression. I mean, tons of compression, and that could easily be used again.
Yeah,
just pull it off.
That's pretty cool.
It's got these lugs. Yeah. The lugs catch into the second rung.
Yeah.
But actually, the lugs aren't really needed, because if you've got a pallet, if you're palletizing them,
it's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to reduce these to maybe 2 lugs, because if you're going to take them off and put them back on again, and if you're doing it, if you're doing it by the hundreds or thousands, you're not going to want to have to go and click, 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 click. You just want to go click, boom, and use them again.
Yeah.
So is that something that can be recycled quite a few times, or what has been that study?
We haven't. We see, because we're reasonably new, and because whiskey takes X amount of time, we haven't used recycled bonnets yet. But by the very nature of the fact that there's virtually nothing wrong with them, and they are pre-charged then with spirit, I think a second use on a bonnet's going to be better than a first use.
Yeah. So if a distillery is doing, I don't know, 8,000 barrels a year, say one of those craft distilleries, bigger ones. So they only need 16,000 of those, right? Top and bottom.
Yeah, I would think they would certainly do 2. They might do 3.
Pretty cool. Yeah. So Charlie, what's the, if this could be the thing of the future? By the way, Ross, I shared it with a bunch of different distillery groups on Facebook. And hello, you win a prize. Where'd that ring come from? Anyone else hear that? That's you. Charlie, so what have been some of the other efforts over the centuries to prevent the angels taking stealing?
Yeah, there really hasn't been. I mean, there's been attempts to wrap casks in cellophane or in plastic or whatever, but by the very nature of the definition I gave of maturation, if you're going to inhibit the ability of the spirit to breathe, you're not going to get a mature spirit. I did hear I was in Portugal last week for the launch, to help with the launch of a rum from Colombia, and old rum. And the reason it was done in Portugal was that the rum was being finished in port pipes, and but the rum maker, it's a company called Dictador, and they produce these very sort of top end rums. But talking to the rum maker, one of the ways that, because down in Colombia, they've got a huge angel share loss, even in relatively damp cellars and so on. One of the ways he inhibits it, which and I'd love to hear your views, Lou and Marty, because I've never heard of this. They would top up. They would keep the casks bung full. Usually you fill a cask bung full, but they would keep it bung full with exactly the same age, in this case, rum, and that seems to inhibit the angel share, the loss. I'd never come across that. And
But that would make sense, because that would keep the head wetter, as is what the bonnet does.
It would make sense. I've never come across that. Do they do that in Kentucky at all, or have you heard of that? No, because
I've never heard that. I've only heard. I have heard of some craft distillers starting to top up. But it's not a standard practice.
But are they topping up with the whiskey of the same age?
It needs to work.
Grinding barrels
Very much of the same age, and because that's essential. Because otherwise, it takes the age of the younger whiskey.
Yeah.
But that seems like. But I mean, on a big commercial scale, it's simply not viable. But on a small scale, it's an interesting idea. But
see, one of the other things that we've got into we've got some Caribbean distilleries that have had the bonnets now for 11 months. So we're waiting for their first years. We expect the first year, because they'll lose so much in comparison with Scotland. We've sent some out to Fiji. We've got our first tequila distillery, and that's going to be, and they've got their bungs on the top, which I think will work even better, because with the bung losing a fair amount of evaporation, if the bonnet can go on the top, not only does it stop the head getting dried out, but it actually keeps should keep the bung wetter as well. So I think it'll double work. So but the problem again with the tequila was tequila always rack, is what I was told. We've got one distillery that have actually got them now, and they're prepared to try them palletize, and we're waiting for the second one to make the order for some bonnets for their distillery, for tequila distillery as well, because they lose huge amounts.
Ross, you said Fiji. What are they barreling in Fiji?
Yeah,
rum.
Water?
Rum.
I thought maybe it was the Fiji water.
Yeah, so I guess just we've had a number of questions and comments, and just building on kind of around the technologies. I've actually seen a lot of research to support that in the bilge region, there's a lot of evaporative losses that happen. So I've participated in some studies trying to kind of attack that area of ullage, and I think the theory there is it's stressed, more stressed wood, so it's an opportunity to evaporate there. So I don't know if that's back to, I guess, Marty, back to the side bonnet. But I think,
Ross, you better jump on that, because my idea is they sell like hotcakes.
As we like to call it, the Scotch diaper.
It's a big mask. How about a big mask on the cask?
Scotch corset.
Yeah.
I think with, again, circling back on the number of technologies that have either tried to address evaporative losses to the head or through the bilge region, many of them, the commerciability and the scalability, even though we did the initial proof of concept, the initial research, when pen to paper to try and scale it up, it just doesn't make sense. And I think, Ross, it sounds like you've made some changes already, but in terms of just simply putting a bonnet on something versus fundamentally changing the way the cask is shaped, or that sort of thing, I think it's promising, for our industry.
The proof of the pudding. We've got a good few distilleries who have got the bonnet and are testing it. So it's a matter of now of getting the numbers when they start coming in to hopefully keep proving it works. So you look to hopefully it works in Fiji, and where they are, it works in the Caribbean where we are, it works in the States where we are, in South Africa, Mexico with it, and where it works better. Does it work better in a dry, or does it work better in a moist heat? We just don't know. But the fact is that what we want to be able to do is come along and scream it by saying, listen, that's it. It works there, it works there, it works there. And there's the percentages X, Y, and Z. And then, because you cannot go and tell a distiller, by the way, it's worked for him, so it's going to work for you, because you'll fall out with them. You'll fall out with them. So therefore, what you've got to say as well, you test them, crack on. If it works, fine. Order a bucket. If it doesn't work, won't take any more. But I'm reasonably confident.
We have Brad from Panama who always watches the show every week, who has a distillery. You should send him a couple, test it out in Panama.
Okay.
Then
Grant?
he could ship
kinda
it
hot
through
there.
the canal. A little hot.
A little hot.
It was a little hot.
And
When I
much
was
was-
helping build the canal there, yeah, it was really hot. I'm a lot older. than I
Lee
was.
had a question here, and it's actually segueing from a question I had in terms of proof difference, and I think about that in terms of not necessarily interactive, but more of the extractive conversation. So, have you seen? You've done the weight exercises, but is there a proof difference? Because I just think about that in terms of preferentially extracting polyphenols versus sugars, etc.
The information that we got up to now was one of the ones we had testing was Cavalan was Ian Chang, and Ian very kindly tested them for us, and his confirmation was that it saved, and there was no change in the spirit structure in any way. So that was very helpful for us, and Ian was one of the people that I really, really wanted. I mean, Charlie was one of them, and Ian Chang was the other one. The two people that I absolutely. There was a court order just about to be given against me for Charlie MacLean because I was hunting him to check my bonnets, but it never got to that stage. But Ian was another one, and he very kindly took them on, and he confirmed that there was no spirit structure change at all. So that and where he was as well, they lost huge amounts in evaporation where they are in Cavalan.
Right, 10% or something like that.
Yeah,
Well, that's interesting. Because, I mean, if you're stopping or you're reducing evaporation in a cask, that means you have, depending whether you're in Kentucky or if you're in Scotland or Ireland, you're keeping in a greater amount of water or alcohol, depending, right?
Or both.
And so, therefore, wouldn't it mature differently in that?
No, but you see, that's the $1 million question, Marty.
Yeah, that's why I asked it.
From Ross's the early experiments he did with a very large distillery company, which he hasn't mentioned, so I won't mention. But they ditched the thing. But so far as they were concerned, for blending purposes, there was no difference at all, but apart from the saving of volume between the ones that had the bonnets and the ones that didn't have the bonnets. But the guy that was in charge of this retired or whatever it was. But the $1 million question is for single malt, single whiskey bottling, is there a difference in flavor? Now that is that was one of the reasons why Ross came to me to talk about this. And we've yet it's a sort of experimental phase, if you like. Before I can say that there really there's no difference, or maybe even better. So it's all very well from a commercial point of view. You're saving liquid. You're saving. But the key thing is for single whiskey bottling, is there going to be a difference in flavour? That's the $1 million question. Now, Ian Chang, I think, said that there was no difference. I haven't looked at Cavalan, the before and after, if you like. But that's the key difference. The key question for single bottling, whether it's American, Japanese, Taiwanese, or Scotch.
That's true, because vatting will come in to play, and
Yeah.
So I would, and I'm wrapping my head around the bonnet, and just from
wrapping the bonnet around your head. There's always that.
So I'm only guessing that at some point there's an equilibrium between water and alcohol that's happening, right? Because that's the whole thing behind evaporative loss, right? We know that in humid climates it preferentially loses alcohol, and I would only assume that at some point you reach an equilibrium. So what's captured here is also what's in the barrel from an ABV standpoint. And I think that's the trick, right? And then whatever else is being lost in the bilge or outside, that's based on the environment. So there's the environment here in equilibrium, and then everything else external to that, from what I'm just gathering from the conversations we've had.
All the reaction that we've had from professors, from master distillers, and we've put our patent drawings over to the scientific departments of huge distilleries, and they've come back and they're going, "No, that works. That's great. Let's do it." And I remember asking one of them, a master distiller says, "Do you wear a white coat and do you put pens up there?" And he went, "Yeah, I do actually." Yeah, he says. I said, "Well, you must know what you're talking about, then, obviously, don't you?" He went, "Yeah, I think so." And it's people like that, because if you remember this started with us having this idea. So we didn't go into we went into a blinker way, because we didn't go into the ethanols and anything in a scientific way. It was just, well, it makes complete sense. You stick it on top, stuff doesn't go out, and that's it.
Practical.
And then you put it to somebody, you put the idea to somebody, went, okay, and you send the patent drawings. And I had discussions with Zoom calls with 8 people at the same time. We went through the patent drawings, and they went, "No, that works." And that's where you get the sort of confidence, and you get a big push when people like that come back to you and say, yeah, let's go, because it's safe. And then when Charlie comes up with things like that, and it's very important when people know what they're talking about, can give you some sort of confidence in that department. So,
hey, Charlie, I want to go back to
that's
something.
the thing.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You say something.
I long to see some samples. Of relatively mature whiskey, the 3-5 years, those that have been matured under the bonnet, and those that have been matured without. That'd be my proof. That'd be my proof, and I would do a triangular taste, sort of where you've got 2 which have got non-bonnet and 1 which has bonnet, and or vice versa, and is there any difference? That's the proof of the pudding.
You see, the market for the bonnet might not be in single malt 20, 15, 10-year-old whiskey. It might be in a huge amount of bourbons, or we're testing, well, tequila, rum, brandy, cognac, which don't take that amount of time. Right. And that, you might be looking at saying, well, you may wish to be in 15-year-old premium Scotch single malt, but why bother? Because if you look at it, what you're saying is that you need to have that, you need to be sitting on for 15 years. And are we going to wait for 15 years until that? Well, we can't. So it might, the market, it may be on there, but it might be you just go into the higher produce, higher.
But and you see, as you well know, as you all well know, that the job of the blender, since 90% of the Scotch whiskey made indeed is blended, and so the job of the blender is to even up, to achieve consistency from batch to batch, and so you're winning both ways, to be honest, because even if there is a very slight difference, it would be just comfortable to be able to say that there is no flavor difference between one with a bonnet and one without a bonnet. But there's great saving if you've got the bonnet. Yeah. But then you're
still wondering.
right.
I mean, we talked about the subtractive, additive, and interactive. Why isn't there less interactive with this?
I think that well, you see, that's the $1 million question.
Yeah, is it going to make a difference over the long run? But like you said, maybe it doesn't work over the long run, and that's fine.
Yeah. And
I don't know.
I think in theory, it should make no difference in the flavor over the long term. But hey, I mean, as I say, sort of 90% of the Scotch made is going to be blended, and the blender can balance it up. But I think it would be nice to be able to say that that really there's no difference between on the long matured whiskies. There's no difference, but it's a very good question, that actually.
As good as my question was earlier. I'm just being competitive here.
I think it was better
a
myself.
contest.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry.
Can I interject and compete with the question?
It might not be as good as ours.
It may not.
We're going to need a scoreboard.
I'll give it a go. So I want to give this back, kind of a combo question, Charlie, Ross, and Lou, in terms of, is some of the reluctancy to adopt, you mentioned maybe higher end single malts. Is that more of a consumer perception? And what role does, the media play with a lot of new technologies, whiskey technology? And I think evaporative loss, I think of controlled maturation as well in the running. So is that the reluctancy to adopt technology? Again, is that more of a consumer perception, and then the second part of the question is, again, what role does the media play in educating the consumer?
Would the consumer know if a bottle of tequila had saved, I don't know, let's say 10% of it because it had a bonnet on? If it didn't taste any difference, the consumer would never know. I don't think.
Well, I also think it's a marvelously low-tech innovation. I mean, you're talking about putting a wood hat on something. I don't think that's.
I think it boils down to people aren't. If it's not as big of a thing in the media, Liz, because at one point when there was talk of certain large spirit companies wrapping barrels in cellophane or whatever, or saran wrap, keeping them fresh, freezer fresh. There was a lot of, people think, oh, wait a minute, that's getting away from tradition. That's getting away from how it's been. And people do balk at it, whether they're right or not. Because it doesn't. There's nothing to do with it. Doesn't even come into the equation. People have problems with change with certain things.
One of the things that we found is that the people, if you're working for a distillery and making X amount of money a year, and it's not your distillery, and it doesn't matter how much, as long as the evaporation doesn't go up, do you really care if all a bonnet would do is maybe complicate your life? If you've got the chief financial officer sitting in there and saying, well, I've got my duty is to the shareholders, and I've got to make sure my bottom line profit. What the bonnet does is bottom line profit, because it just increases the amount that's going to come out of your barrel after 3 or 5 years. So it's the chief executives, the chief financial officers, who are the people that have to kind of you have to get it in their heads to get them to try it, to tell the guys on the shop floor. Because if you're doing 2,000 barrels a day, you're not going to want to take these things off and take these on again. You're just going to, you know what, it's a great idea, lads, but we're not going to bother with it. If the chief executive goes, listen, this is going to save us a huge amount of money for not very much capital outlay, try it. And that's what we found. We found that actually has happened. Just get it going.
That's why I think smaller distilleries, especially here in the States, I mean, I go around the country visiting all these small distilleries, and you see that, few of them have more than, say, I guess it would be considered a good quantity if they had, say, 2,000 barrels. And they're going to be laying them down for a number of years. And a lot of them are palletizing them. I shouldn't say laying them down, standing them up. And I would think they're the ones who are saying, oh my God, I can keep as much, I can keep more. And it isn't as big of maintenance for them. That's because they're not emptying that many barrels or moving them about that as often as the big guys are.
Yeah, I think the pushback is that that's not craft. That's not, again, and just going back to the perception. And I think, Ross, to your point, it's like, okay, bottom line, like the math makes sense, but what's the perception around it? Whether or not that's a consumer or
I think that she brings up, this is a lot of this is how it's presented, and then once it's presented, how it's disseminated.
Yeah. Well, and also too, Liz, I think with small distilleries, some people might say, oh, cool. They're always looking at small distilleries as being innovative, number one. And also, there's not as much media focus on small distilleries unless they're asking for it, unless they're going out there. And I don't know. I don't even know if they started doing this. I had no idea what a Scotch bonnet was. I would simply think, oh, look, they're putting a little something out to scuff the top of the barrels when they're palletizing. Nice. That's nice.
Well, actually, I mean, I know a lot of craft distillers that are using enzymes, and mostly nobody bats an eye because nobody knows.
Yeah.
No. It's a great discussion. It's because that's I talk about it in the book, but it's also about politics. Perception's reality. It's how it's presented and what people think of it. Yeah, don't you dare bring up that page number.
Charlie, are you not in Lou's books and under acknowledgments, are you?
Lord knows.
Right here,
but it's all in how it's presented. I mean, and honestly, I think the fact that it's made out of wood.
I think the key thing is that whether the barrels are matured on their side as they were traditionally done, or standing up, palletized, which Ross would want them to be standing up and palletized and put the bonnet on. And I mean, some would say, fair enough. I was talking to today, Ross, to some of the guys at the IWSC, judging panel about this very thing, and some of them say, oh no, we don't want to put our barrels standing up. We're used to them on the sides, and also to some extent, of course, their warehouses are all designed to be, on the side.
There's enough palletized spirit bottles in the world that if it, as it continues to work, there's enough to keep us very, very busy, I would think.
Absolutely.
And one of the ones that getting into the tequila was very important for us because I looked at pictures of tequila, and everything I saw about tequila was lying on their side. And eventually we've got somebody now who's saying, yeah, let's do that, because they're very, very excited about what we can save them. And then you can, if you get one and it proves, and it doesn't taste, why would tequila want to be sitting on its side if you can save a bucket of money, bucket of spirit?
Absolutely.
So Charlie, you going back to what you were saying a while ago, you said so much of the angel share is lost through the cask end, and I'm thinking, well, is that true when it's laying down as well? If so, why?
Apparently.
Not through the staves, huh?
I don't really know why. Because obviously you got the spirit level in the cask on its sides is is reduced. So you'd think it was evaporating through the sides of the cask.
But do they not turn barrels to keep them wet?
No, not generally. I think they do in America.
Too much labor.
But yeah, too much labor. And so generally they leave them alone. I mean, there have been, sort of experimental, turning the casks and or playing music to the casks. This is very much experimental stuff. To either expedite or whatever. It's really to expedite maturation. But
sorry, I just had an image of a bunch of Morris dancers going through the warehouse, banging on the ends of the casks. Sorry.
Well, I remember there was a guy. It was a selling point for was it Abelard Distillery in on Speyside, and the manager was a great bagpiper, and so he would go and practice his bagpipes, and it was believed that helped the cask to mature. But I mean, it was probably such an awful bagpiper that nobody would.
I think the whiskey probably matured really fast, so you could get the hell out of there.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus Christ. Oh, yes. So wait a minute. So if that, all right. See, because I'm going to try this, Charlie, and I'm sorry, Ross. I'm going to have to compete against you. Put Duffy Enterprises, Lou, I'm stealing the corset thing, the whiskey corset for the ones that lay down. We're going to see.
Oh, there's your slogan right there, for the ones that lay down.
For those lazy casts. Don't like standing all the time. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ross. I put you out of business.
You would
you were warned.
region, right? So that a whiskey. Would you say a Duffy corset? So
Duffy, a whiskey corset.
It would
the Duffy corset right there. That's good.
I already wear a Duffy corset.
The bilgeolage.
Liz, I'm going to have you perfect it with your scientific methods.
Okay. Well, I really, truly can't wait for this R&D.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you promoting this, Ross? How is the word? I think I saw it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I've taken on board an extremely talented lady who is very good at getting into social media, who has designed loads of things for us, who's basically taken me, who've been terribly lazy, and we spent an absolute fortune on patents on this, and taken it to where we are just now. Because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be sitting talking on this. We wouldn't be into all of the distilleries that we're into just now. So that's how we're taking it, is social media. Social media has worked really, really well. And just keeps on going.
Well, sweet. Hey, Charlie, one real quick question to you, and then I think, Liz, if you want to grab some more questions from the viewers. But Charlie, for you,
sorry. Yeah.
What's the matter, sir? Can you hear me, Charlie?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So, what is the? Now, I was a little shocked. I think I read this just recently, but the term angel share is really a marketing term that's relatively new. It's like only about 30 years old. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. Nick Morgan has been doing some work on that, and it's really it only begins to emerge in the 1960s, and it was, as I said right at the start, it began to be used by cognac people probably earlier, but it was only adopted by the Scotch Whisky Industry in the 1960s, I would guess. Yeah.
Oh, that's a little older than I thought. Still, relatively. Did they have a term for it back in the 1800s?
In brewing, there's a thing, session beer, the low alcohol beers, and I think everyone assumed that went back to the 20s or the 1800s. Turns out the first mention of it's in the mid 80s. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just, we think it's forever because it's from our youth. That's
We're living in history right now. That's what we're finding out.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I didn't know that. That's very interesting indeed. Yeah.
And The Angel's Share is a wonderful film. If nobody's,
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. A young and upcoming star is in
Charlie
there.
Charlie MacLean plays a character, I think, called Charlie MacLean. He just plays himself. It's perfect.
I hear you had an audition for the role.
Kind of close to like an Indiana Jones kind of character.
It's like Elvis Presley was third in an Elvis Presley. Well, Charlie MacLean played Charlie MacLean. He did it bloody well, I tell you that.
Very sitting there going, "Who's Elvis Presley?"
I know who Elvis is.
All right.
It's a charming film. Whether your American viewers will be able to understand the language remains to be seen.
Happily, we have English subtitles for movies like that.
Yes.
Good. Yeah, very good. In Canada, the only bad reviews that the film got, it won the jury prize at Cannes, which is the #2 prize at Cannes, and did terribly well. But the only bad reviews were from Canada, and the one that I saw, he said, this film is morally suspect and incomprehensible.
Well, it is a little weird. It's about street kids who end up finding a new path in life through whiskey, and it's like, I don't think that really happens in real life. I think if most street kids started drinking whiskey.
No,
But Martin, it's called fiction. It wasn't a documentary.
I understand, but if I wrote fiction about, hey, this guy found
I thought
redemption.
it was a particularly hard-hitting section on the chafing under kilts. I thought that was well done. You so rarely hear about that. But it's a real problem.
It is a problem.
What we got in here, Lizard?
Yeah, redemption. It was really redemption through whiskey. It's redemption through alcohol, which is an odd sort of term. It's a lovely film. Mm-hmm. No, I urge you to check it out. The Angel's Share.
Check it out. I bet it's on YouTube. YouTube shows a lot of foreign films for free. Lizard?
Yes, so there were a couple of comments. Adam said, brilliant point as usual, Charlie makes about blending, the great equalizer, which just, commenting on that, of course, blending and blended whiskey, but blending is also a great tool in single malts, which people tend to overlook. So blending, yes.
You would refer to blending. The blending of single malts, though, is usually vatting. Right, Charlie? When you
single malt vatting.
Well, avoids the confusion.
Yeah, but I mean,
not according to the SWA.
The blended Scotch is now regarded by sort of malt heads as being kind of second rate. No way. It is still. Blended Scotch supports the whole category, and the 90% of the whiskey made is blended Scotch. Only about 10% of malt whiskey goes into blends.
And I would say more than 90% of the Scotch whiskey consumed is blends, because nobody's taking blends and putting them on a shelf.
Yeah. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, right.
I'm a great fan of blended. I mean, I'm drinking blended Scotch now.
Right.
And blended Scotch is
You're soaking in it.
My go-to. The malt, for me, malt whiskies work, and Scotch is great.
That's well put.
Well, I always tell folks too. When I travel all the time for Glencairn, I drink at a lot of hotel bars, and they're not going to have a lot of single malt scotches, but they'll always have
Johnny Black.
Oh, Johnny Black, that's my favorite. I had to get a bottle of Johnny Blue to
Of course you do.
And
Is that a freaking liter bottle? That looks like a pretty good sized bottle there.
It looks huge at 75.
It does. Good God.
But but I had to, and so I can charge to the client. But I had to talk actually for China, talking about Johnny Walker Blue but I still prefer black. I still prefer black. Blue is fine, but it's very smooth.
Blue Label's your palate cleanser when you're doing those judgings like you were today.
Yeah.
In between.
Quick gargle.
Just to clean the palate. One of the judges today was Jim Beveridge, who's the so-called master blender for he's a very, very modest man, so there's a team of blenders that make Johnny Walker, but he's the sort of guy that's shoved out in front reluctantly. And when they launched Blue was originally it was launched in the late 80s as Johnny Walker
oldest.
Oldest. That's right, oldest. And it had on the label between 15 and 60 years old. But that was then banned because you had to have only the number of the youngest. So then it became Blue, and it had no age statement. Has no age statement, and yet it was being charged. I mean, the price they were looking for was about 5 times as much as black label. Yeah, and so I was asked to write some advertorial stuff, and I said, well, how on earth do you justify the
not a question they want to hear, I'm sure.
And Jim, God bless him, he says, well, we've got some very old whiskies and some very rare whiskies. And I said, Jim, anybody can say that, But so we spent the morning in a hotel here in Edinburgh, and going through the selling points, sort of how do we angle this. And then we went off for lunch, and then we came back, and we were looking for the perfect serve, and we went through different glasses, different all that sort of stuff with soda and all the stuff. And in the middle of the afternoon, and I went. There was a wee bar in the corner of this room, and I went to have a glass of water, and then Jim, who's a very, as you know, is a very. He's a very, very quiet sort of chap, but he gave a little shriek. He did go, Charlie, I think I've got it. Yeah? And he had a sip of there was a jug of water with ice, and he had a sip of it just to the very, very cold water, and then a sip of the whiskey straight, and he said, "Yep," and he gave this little shriek. I think I've got it. And so then I found that if you take a cube of ice and really chill your palate, and then either swallow it or spit it out, and then taste it straight, unbelievable. I mean, it was velvet, really velvet. And I haven't found a whiskey since that is so velvety,
We called that the perfect serve. That was our Blue Label perfect serve.
I've heard of a chaser. So is this a primer? Is it?
Yeah.
You hear people talking about a chaser, but this is a primer. Guys, I'm afraid we'll have to cut this session now. It's been really great chatting with both you, Ross, and Charlie.
Ross, Charlie, thank you.
Yeah, Ross, real quick, how would people get in contact with you for your bonnet, for the Scotch bonnet?
I think if you just you Google Scotch Bonnet Angels Share, you'll come up with our website, and if you just contact us through there, we can speak Quite happy to have Zoom calls with people if they want to chat. I'm quite happy to chat about getting half a dozen 6 over so people can test them themselves. What we've done up to now is we've offered 6. If you pay the carriage, we'll give you 6 bonnets.
Nice.
It's what we don't want to do is give them away for nothing, because then people don't appreciate them. If you put something in, and it's worked very well. DHL have been very busy just now. So if you contact us through the website, great.
Put the link also down below as well. So
Sweet. Yeah.
Contact Ross. Awesome. So next week we have a very cool session as usual. Next week we'll have Kirby Callis Lewis of Ula Distillery in Seattle. So there's a link also for next week in the chat section. So come back next week and hang out with us.
And Charlie MacLean's books are available on Amazon and probably at charliemaclean.com.
MBE, by the way. MBE.
NBA.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Charlie.
Yeah, congrats.
Cheers.
Most excellent.
God bless
Hi,
you
guys.
all.
Cheers, all.
Good night, guys.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Ross, give me a shout.
I'll give you a shout. Yeah, we'll meet up next week.
Mm.
Where are you next week?